Welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly podcast featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 247, What New Thing? And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the host. I'm here today in my home studio, and I want to be the first one to say Happy Monday, dear friend. I hope that wherever you are, you're having a great day, that you have started the day off right by doing the work of the soul, by going inward, by setting your intention for the day, and doing the work that ought to be done by you. That's a part of a phrase I love by Charles Fillmore, where he said, I do the things that ought to be done by me. And friends, I think that you are called to something great. I think each of us are every day. And the work of the soul is discovering what that is and then moving forward to do it. So this is show 247 on the Authentic Spiritual Journey. Today is March 13th, and the title of today's show is What New Thing? What new thing? And the rest of that phrase really is, what new thing are you called to do and be? What new thing are you called to do and be? I chose this topic this time of year because we are in a time of spring. This spring starts in about a week here. And, you know, the thing I love about nature is the expression of God. A lot of church folks, I've noticed, don't really relate God anymore to the seasons or to nature. It seems that nature's over here and God is way up there. But in my teaching and in my spiritual beliefs, nature is simply an expression of God, that we can never be separate from God's creation. And I think it's really important for us on the spiritual journey to look inward and see, is there some message? Is there something we can relate to? What's happening in nature right now as it relates to our spiritual journey? In other words, is there a connection between nature and my spiritual journey? And in fact, I believe there is. In many faiths, when praying, there is a turning to the east to pray. Why would one turn to the east to pray? Because this is the sun rising from the east. So this is a beautiful way of honoring, acknowledging, and enfolding our spiritual practice with nature, that it represents for us illumination as the sun rises from the east. So in this time of year, which is spring, and of course, leading up to Easter, which is next month in just a few weeks, this time of year is about newness. It's about rebirth. It's about the springing forth, right? That's why it's called spring. The springing forth of the buds on the flowers, like they're just ready to burst forth, right? Because they've been seemingly dormant all winter, right? So if that's true in nature, what I've learned is that there is an energy that is very, very supportive of us, of our growth physically, emotionally, and spiritually. That when we can connect with what's happening on planet Earth, that in fact, we are doing ourselves a favor spiritually, emotionally, and physically, because the energy is right for growth. In other words, we are vibing, we are flowing with creation itself. We are flowing with creation itself. It's interesting, there is a verse in the Bible, it's actually when Jesus is riding into Jerusalem on a holiday we often call Palm Sunday. But there's, in one of the scriptures, it talks about that if people didn't say, Hosanna, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, that the rocks would actually cry out. So even the Bible speaks of creation, speaking of God's holiness and certainly the holiness of Jesus. So this teaching most definitely has a spiritual basis. So in this time of spring, of newness, of rebirth, there is an energy that is very, very supportive of your new growth, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So you're going to hear me say several times on the course of this podcast, during the course of this podcast, what new thing are you called to do and be? What new thing are you called to do and be? What I love about this time of year is it doesn't mean, for me, spring means the renewing of what has already been, but it's like new life is breathed into it. It's like new life is breathed into it. So is there an area of life that is wanting to be breathed into your process, into your life, into your relationships? Like, is there a love relationship that's needing your loving attention right now? Is your relationship needing a little romance? Is your relationship needing a little nurturing with time away from phones and TVs? That's just one example of how something that is good, something that is holy, could use new life and new energy. Maybe it's a renewed attitude about your job, like breathing new life into a job that you've been in for 10 years, 15 years, or even 25 years. Is there some new energy that wants to come in and through you to make this job more enjoyable, more fun, more full of life and energy? Well, what I've learned, friends, is that we always expect for that to happen to us. Like, when is somebody going to make my life better? And we forget that we are in the driver's seat energetically of our own lives. So there may be a time for you right now where maybe there's an aspect of you that you have forgotten where your true power is, and that you have the power to bring this new energy, this new spring into your life and world. Because you always have within you this power, this energy. You always have the Spirit of the living God in you. You always have your soul. What we forget to do is access that energy. We forget to access that energy and put ourselves in the driver's seat of creating the life we want to live. And we keep thinking somebody else will do it for us. Like, when will my boss notice me? When will my boss do this? When will my family see who I really am? Well, if you're an adult, it's time for you to see you as you really are. If you're not happy in your job, it's time for you to bring happiness into that job. That you absolutely have the power to change your life and world through working with your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions. I keep coming back to this teaching I took to the kids. It's been a couple months ago now, that the three keys to a success mindset are thought, belief, and action. Thought, belief, and action. It's pretty amazing that you have the power to change your life for the better by working with your thoughts, your belief, and your actions. That no matter what it is you're facing, if you work with it and you do those three things, whatever is before you absolutely has to transform. Has to transform. So if there's a place in your life that feels dormant, it's time to breathe some spring energy into it. So this is really a great time of year for you to feel empowered. It is a time of newness, rebirth, and spring, and there is an energy that is very supportive of your growth physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I'm repeating that on purpose. So what new thing are you called to do and be? And remember, it may not be a brand new thing. It may be something you're already doing, an area of life that's already yours that needs new life. And I'll give you an example. So I even shared this on the show a few months ago that I had a great little car. It was a great little grocery getter and commuter car. But you know what I noticed is that I wasn't having any fun driving anymore. And I loved to drive. When I was a kid, I loved go-karts. I loved bicycles. I always loved to move. I loved motorcycles. I loved to drive all different cars, sports cars, trucks, anything that could drive. I loved to drive it. It's a funny thing. Most women are not that way, but I have always loved to drive. Loved go-karts. I had a one-seater. I had a two-seater. All these different bicycles. I had a bicycle built for two. We had a 3-wheel bicycle. I had a 10-speed. I had one with a banana seat. I love everything with wheels. I always have. So when as an adult, I was feeling responsible getting this little commuter car because I'd had this large truck, when I had a horse, and I loved that truck. Well, it got to the point where I didn't really need it, and it felt irresponsible to keep it because I was using all this gas, and I knew I was going to be doing a lot of speaking around the country, and a lot of the times I would be driving, and because I did love to drive, and I thought, well, I'm just going to get this fun little commuter car. And you know what? For the first couple of years, I really enjoyed it. But there was something about it. It represented a tough time in my life or something. I'm not sure why. It was when I left my job. It was all around that time that I'd purchased that car. So the car represented something, and it just felt heavy when I got in it. It didn't feel fun anymore. So this is a funny thing to talk about probably, but what I noticed is when I started looking at other cars, I got excited again. I had new energy. I had new joy. And one of the things I really missed was having a sunroof. So I was able to get the truck I needed, another truck, a truck that was a little bit smaller, even though it's a 4-wheel drive, a truck with a sunroof that was newer. I love everything about it. I love the seats. I love the way it feels. I love the way it looks. I love the way I feel driving it. I have a new energy when I drive that. And I thought I was going to have that car forever. But it was really time that I breathed new energy into it. And it was funny because with the car, I did everything. I kept it super clean. I was washing it every week, cleaning the inside and vacuuming it. As a matter of fact, when I would take it in for oil changes, they could not believe how clean it was. Inside and out, it was spotless. So, I loved that car for a time. And so I noticed when I was getting tired of it, I started letting it get dirty. And then when I cleaned it, it just felt like a pain. But I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to try to breathe new life into this. And I started cleaning it up again. I was blessing my car. And I thought, you know what? This is a good car, but it isn't mine anymore. So the way I needed to breathe new life into my driving was to get a new vehicle. So that's a long story to say. It could feel something like that for you. And it could be in any area of your life. There was a time I felt that in my financial life too. My financial life was a little bit stuck. Even though I was tithing and forgiving and setting goals, I felt like I wasn't moving forward. Well, I realized I wasn't being super conscious around my spending and around my saving. So even though I was tithing and I felt somewhat in the flow, I didn't feel like I was in the driver's seat always of where the money was going. And I realized there were places I was overspending, and I actually felt better about my money by saving and not spending. Well, sometimes the opposite will be true. So that's what I mean. As you do the deeper soul work, as you are always seeking to know what new thing am I called to do and be, you may be called into different behaviors than your mind might think, right? You might be called into different behaviors than your mind might first think, because your soul has this infinite intelligence, and your soul will guide you what is next on the journey. In other words, what is your next right step for you? An aspect of this work then is going to be learning to trust yourself. Learning to trust yourself in your spiritual decisions. I have a dear friend who is an interior designer, and I was thinking about my workspace at home and I had just mentioned something to him about it, and he recommended a color for my office space. And it was really interesting. I got so excited, and I ran right out and I bought the color, and I even painted it myself. It was a pretty lengthy process, and I felt great about it for the first few days. And the longer I sat with it, the more I didn't like it. And as I worked with this spiritually, I realized I'd given a little of my power away and that I didn't trust myself fully in making that choice. So believe it or not, friends, I had to buy all new paint, and I just repainted my office, and I feel a lot better about it. And I thought this was a great teaching for myself to remember to trust myself, my likes and dislikes. It's okay if nobody else likes it. I like it. And what was interesting is I got wonderful feedback on my color. Nobody said anything about the old color, so I don't know if they felt the same or not. But I feel really, really good about trusting myself and my own process. So as we develop on the spiritual journey, we learn to trust ourselves, even if we make missteps. I hope you hear too, as I'm saying this, sometimes when I'm the one giving the program, people think that everything in my life is perfect. And friends, I'm a student on this journey we call life as well. I'm a student of the spiritual journey, and every morning I do my meditation work and my journaling work. Every morning I still have to make that choice to do it. No one does it for me. So I'm still in a learning process with you. So learning to trust yourself, I believe, is a lifelong process. So if you've made a misstep this week, remember you're in good company. It's a learning to trust yourself. So what new thing are you called to do and be? Remembering this is a time of year of newness, rebirth, of spring, of this energy that is very, very supportive. It's like there's this universal energy that says, grow now. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, all three of those. Physically, emotionally, and spiritually, what is mine to do and be? What is mine to do and be? In other words, how can I bloom in my life? How can I bloom in my life? There's a couple of songs. It's really interesting doing this show today. There's a couple songs that came to mind that I had forgotten I've been listening to lately. One of them is actually called The Rocks Cry Out, or Rocks Cry Out. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. And another one is called Amaryllis. So I'm going to have both of those links in the show notes so you can click on those and listen if you have Spotify. That'll be a nice link for you. What new thing are you called to do and be? And what new level of trust maybe are you called into? Because remember, I've made a big point of saying learning to trust yourself is a big part of this one. Because nobody can know what yours to do and be but you. Now, the good news is we can have guides, we can have helpers on the journey. I help many people with that, and I am honored to. If you've never done coaching with me, I would encourage you to send me an email or make a call so that we can get something set up. Even if you just do a session or two, boy, when you're in this process of trying to discern next steps, it's really great to get objective feedback in where some areas, where you might be a little stuck in some new ideas about moving forward. But ultimately, it is your self-discernment that will get you there. Sometimes it's nice just to have a little help on the way, but it's ultimately your self-trust, your self-discernment, and of course, working with God, working with the Spirit of all that is, working with the Christ presence. You're going to be doing all of that. You're also going to be working, in a new way with your thoughts, beliefs, and actions. You're also going to be working maybe in a little bit deeper way, learning to trust yourself. Learning to trust yourself is a process. The other piece you might be called to that I just wanted to lift up, because several of my clients I was just talking with earlier today, and we were talking about the need for self-care on the journey. That so often when we get really focused and we're moving forward and we're doing deep spiritual work, that sometimes we can get so busy doing, we forget to be. We forget to unplug, to put the phone down, to take a walk in the woods, to go to a park, to get on the water, maybe even go for a long drive, go to the beach, be somewhere where we're not getting like tapped on the shoulder every minute by our phone. It is absolutely necessary that you take care of yourself by unplugging. You might need rest. You might even need a new food or vitamin regimen. That would be really important to check in with your doctor about as you're thinking about those types of things. But sometimes self-care is simply taking a break from the life that we've created for ourselves, because most of us do not create for ourselves a lot of time and space. With all the screens everywhere we go, most of us go from looking at our phone in the morning to a computer screen all day at work. We might pause for dinner and then watch Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or HBO Max, one of those, for the rest of the evening. And that is not healthy for the mind, body, or soul. That is not healthy. You have got to take care of yourself and take a break from all the screens. I was talking with somebody recently who told me it completely changed her life perspective to just have a couple days completely off and away from her phone. Sometimes we can be so plugged in to take 4 or 5 minutes away from our phone seems like a lot. And then yet we can be on the phone and be on the phone for 3 or 4 hours and not even notice any time went by. Friends, that's called mind control. That's a bit much. That's a bit much. So what new thing are you called to do and be? What new thing? What new thing am I called to do and be? What a wonderful question to ask yourself. I have a dear friend who's a minister. His name is Britt Hall, and he's a senior minister at Unity of New York. And he always says, he starts the day with the phrase, "What is mine to do today?" He's a wonderful list maker, and he'll write down what's his to do today. What is mine to do? And so my only question today, what new thing am I called to do and be, is really specifically because of this time we're in on planet Earth during this time. What am I called to do and be? What I've noticed that the world needs right now at this moment is people living on purpose with their passion, full of love and energy for humanity. That the basic human right now, if you turn on the news or television, it looks like everybody's interested in what I can get, how I can say the smartest thing to cut somebody down, and how I can be right and look good. And what I'm talking about is a completely different level of living. And that level of living is about living from my Christ self. That level of living is about living a life on purpose, centered in God. That life is where I know I have value and I lift others up so they know they have value. That my work is an extension of my purpose and my connection with God. My friendships, my romantic relationships are extensions of my relationship with God. That in every one of those settings, in my work is connected to my soul and my spiritual journey. That there's nothing separate. So when we're asking the question, what new thing am I called to do and be? We're asking, is there any area of my life that I am, my soul is asking for new energy? Right? Because everything around us is waking up right now. Here in Florida, it's a really beautiful time. So I know and in different places in the world, you're in different seasons. So whatever it is for you, just apply whatever the season is doing to your life and world right now. But for all of us, there is always a new energy that wants to bring new growth physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And for us right here and now, it's really, really supportive of that. So my hope for you, dear friend, as you go throughout your week is to begin asking yourself this every day. You've got a week until it's officially spring. And I want you to really work with your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions. Don't just listen to the podcast and then turn it off and forget about it. I want you to really spend time thinking, what new thing am I called to do and be? And then work with it on whatever level it is, whether it's relational, whether it's spiritual, whether it is financial, whether it is to do with your career or health and body. Please, please, please spend the time searching your soul to know, what new thing are you called to do and be? Listen to some songs, get some music that'll support you. I'm going to put 2 links in the show notes for you. One is Amaryllis and the other one is Rocks Cry Out. And I hope those will inspire you. They're real different songs. They're total rock songs. And I hope you're really going to enjoy those. I'm going to be praying with you and for you as you discern, what new thing am I called to do and be? And friends, remember, this time of year is a time for newness, rebirth, and spring. This energy is very supportive of your life and world, to grow physically, emotionally, and spiritually. What new thing are you called to do and be? This is the question I hope you ask yourself every day. What new thing am I called to do and be? Dear friend, please know that I pray with you and for you. As always, I am honored to support your journey, and I'm holding you in prayer for God's highest and best in your life. I look forward to seeing you here next week, and blessings on the journey, dear friend.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2023, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.